This is the Nintendo Switch OLED, and we were talking about the Steam Deck's community the other week, and I thought it'd be interesting to bring up the Switch's community because it's absolutely frickin' huge. So, I was able to pick up my Switch OLED off of Amazon, renewed as body only. So, I was able to pick this up for around $170, which is really cheap considering what you can get done with this device and how frequent you can get this device for not MSRP. I was able to get this deal because it doesn't come with a dock, it didn't come with any Joy-Cons. So what I did was, I said, okay, well, I just need a new body. The Joy-Cons I have are fine, but they do have stick drift, and their batteries are okay. So I got a Gully kit of joysticks to replace the broken sticks that I had, and I got a shell and Joy-Con kit from Extremerate to do a shell swap on the entire device to make it feel more cohesive as a unit than just one portion of it's a Pokemon Switch and the other portion is just old Joy-Cons from a different device. I wanted to feel like a unit. So I went and did the kit for this, which is actually just a backplate and some bezels that you have to replace, so it was relatively easy. The Joy-Cons, however, replacing all of the shell on those and the batteries is more intricate than you think. The Joy-Cons have an absolute ton of parts inside them. It's actually incredible how tightly packed these little devices are, because you use them, you put your hands on them, they have different buttons and joysticks and clicks and all this other stuff, and they have to slot on to the device itself and be able to charge. So there's a lot that goes on in these tiny little Joy-Cons. I would say those are actually harder than doing the shell swap on the unit itself, because those took way longer than the actual shell. I was able to get the shell done in an afternoon, where each of the Joy-Cons took a good amount of time, probably 3 or 4 hours. Over the years, they've also created a software system that you can pay into and play some retro games and a few other different things, but their online presence isn't as large as, say, Steam's or Xbox or PlayStation, because you can't play all of the games on a Nintendo device. It's just not set up for that kind of power. But everything they provide, you can also get in digital, which is still a nice option. There's tons of software on the Nintendo Store, in addition to a Nintendo subscription that you can get, which you do have to pay for. But you do get a ton of retro games that you can play on your device, which is kind of nice if you already have a Switch and maybe you're just looking to update the visual gameplay of the device, because the internals of the Switch OLED haven't changed at all. So there's essentially 3 switches in the range: a small, a normal, and a fancy option. We'll go with the fancy as the OLED option. And Extremerate makes shells for all of those. They sent one over to me for free to do this video on, and it just proves that, like, even if you find one of these and they're like, it's cosmetically damaged, maybe just on the back or on the sides or something, you could buy one of these shells and get yourself a deal on a Switch when maybe you just want the better screen, which is basically all I wanted. I just wanted a new screen. So, between replacing all of the parts on the Switch itself or any of the models, you could basically do all of that. And if you want to get into jailbreaking your Switch, you can do that as well. There's tons of guides online to actually doing that. Software modding your Switch and the Switch ecosystem isn't as easy as anything else. It's kind of its own thing. So if you're looking for a modding option and you want to get into this ecosystem, kind of mod it and do whatever software you want on this device, it's not great for it. But if you're looking to just play Nintendo games and play within that ecosystem, this is a great option. And being within the Nintendo ecosystem, you can transfer all of your stuff between the devices. So having your Switch have one profile, you can actually transfer all of your old profile and saves over to another Switch just by having them near each other. It's not very fast and it's not very easy, but you can do it. So it kind of does want you to have just one. But with the parts and availability of everything, upgrading to that and then kind of selling your old one might be an option. It's not nearly as streamlined as like the Steam ecosystem, where it's If you have 2 Steam Decks, you can just log in and it'll sync all the saves, which is awesome. But it does okay for itself. It just knows that you have this device, and maybe you only play one game on your Switch Lite and you only play one game on the other one, or just move everything from one console to the next.
Simple.
The community as a whole is great because Nintendo fans are, well, Nintendo fans. They're going to play the games and they're going to play the hardware as it comes out, because that's how this group of people is. They have a certain set of games that is fantastic on its own software, and it's built because it knows what it's going to be played on. And it's kind of the same adage that Apple's created over the years, where Apple has its own ecosystem of things that it does and does well, and people like it for that, and they know what they're getting into, versus Android, where the phones are vastly different overall you can do, but you can do more. Same thing with Nintendo here. Nintendo is Nintendo. It makes Pokemon games, it makes Legend of Zelda games, and it makes Mario games. It does this in a creative hardware and software development cycle. So if you like those types of games and you like to be able to play multiplayer on one screen with a bunch of controllers, you could do that on all of your other stuff, but a lot of these games are preference to that because they're more family consoles than say a Steam machine would be. So the Switch community overall and the Nintendo community as a whole is awesome. They have tons of different hardware. Being able to take off the Joy-Cons and put on whatever you want on there is a real big feature, because you can do it with anything. And having parts and availability for different shells and all different manners of hardware is great too. The stuff that I ended up going with, the clear shell and the different Joy-Con replacements, really makes it feel more of a whole device than a bunch of parts that I just picked up off of eBay and Amazon. So if you're interested in communities around gaming devices, take a look at the Steam Deck one that I made recently. That one turned out pretty well, and I stand behind it because it's great. But if you want to think about other things like maybe emulation on the go or Android emulation, there's tons of other videos around here that you could take a look at and maybe even watch them. And make sure to subscribe down below, because there's a ton more to come. And the winner of our giveaway from last week was Crack is Whack with a bunch of X's in it. I will be contacting you, and make sure to get your MiiU Mini Plus out to you. If you'd like to be considered for any of our next giveaways, just subscribe down below, and you'll be part of the next giveaway. Till then, take a look at any of these videos.